остается. Пусть небо прозрачно чистое, синевою к сердцу прикоснется. Ты просто живи и дыши, и люби. И каждый, кто дорог, пусть рядом остается. И каждый, кто дорог, пусть рядом остается.
Today, we are at Shukhomlinskyi National University of Mykolaiv. We witnessed an important event for the students from the Translation Department in celebration of the International Translation Day. Students performed skits and songs in different languages, such as Ukrainian, English, and German. Later, we interviewed Irina Usashenko, a lecturer from the Translation Department, who talked to us about translation and languages. Hello, so my name is Luis Perea. I am here a lecturer of English at Shukhomlinskyi National University of Mykolaiv. And here I am going to interview my colleague, Irina Usashenko, who is a lecturer of translation in the Department of Translation. So how are you today?
Thank you, very nice.
Okay, very good. So,
actually, we celebrate it annually because on the 30th of September we have the International Translation Day. Okay. So besides our classes, we try to encourage our students remember about their profession and celebrate it every year. So every year, to make this event interesting, we choose the topic and they choose their songs. Also we had a deal with fairy tales, so they translate them and then perform, plus they perform. We understand that classes cannot be always very funny and exciting. Sometimes you had to sit for a long time to translate something, and in this way, by means of this cover fest, we try to encourage them, to make them move, to make them think creatively. So this is why we are trying to do this every day, and this turns out to be very interesting because they can demonstrate their different talents, and sometimes they disclose something they hadn't shown before. Actually, we have two types of tasks. The first grade, they are freshmen, so they always receive song in English and have to translate it into Ukrainian. That's easier. And sophomores and third year, fourth year, fifth year, etc. students receive vice versa Ukrainian songs, and they have to translate them into English. But it happens not always, because, for example, one year we had our fest dedicated to the Beatles. So this is why we couldn't give Ukrainian songs to everybody, you see. So, but we are trying to do in this way. So the aim of our department is to give a higher education in philology. So after completing our bachelor's degree, they have a qualification of bachelor of philology and translator of the not English, but they say foreign language. And after completing the master's degree, they have the qualification of Master of Philology and translator of two languages. So this is the main idea, to help them to get higher education. Actually, I would divide them into several groups. Let's say three. A part of it leave our country, unfortunately, or luckily, I do not know. We hope everything's going to be all right. Because of the fact that they know English language and some two languages, actually English and German in our case, so they have an opportunity to get to complete, continue their study and get maybe sometimes even new profession and stay there. The second group works here. They work usually in some IT companies, because such companies always need students who know English. There are a lot of people who have technical knowledge, but they don't know English. So for these companies, it's easier to take students who know English and teach them technical aspects than do vice versa. And the third group unfortunately, IT companies and translation bureaus and maybe sometimes teacher, because they can get after bachelor and master degree another master degree and they can teach. And the third group is unfortunately not connected with the translation. They look for work in some other areas and fields. Well, actually, it depends on the seriousness of places they work in. For example, during the fourth and the fifth grade, they have practical training. So they go to the translation bureaus. And those who have enough knowledge and who can sit during a long time, usually they stay there. You see? So actually, like 50-50. Some of them, for example, translate orally, like they are interpreters. But it does matter when they work, for example, in a marriage agency, because this is the work too, right? And when, for example, they work in some agricultural company. So it matters, right, to translate. Hi, how you doing? And something about machinery and tools, engineering. So like 50-50. But again. Actually, the question is complicated and it has the history. First of all, we work with two languages, I mean mostly English and Ukrainian, because Ukrainian is the official and the only official language of our country.
Okay.
Second, students have a stable qualification, and those two languages are written right in the diploma supplement.
Okay.
So we cannot violate this.
Yes, I see.
But nevertheless, we deal with the Ukrainian, with students sometimes at home.
Yes.
As for me, at home with my parents and grandparents, I speak Russian.
I see.
Because I studied at Russian school. Then when I moved to Lyceum, I studied in Ukrainian.
I see.
So as for today, we are, when I studied, for example, at the university, we had deal with Russian and partly Ukrainian. I can't say for sure even now, but still now it is very, so the question is rather serious, because we have been establishment our the dignity of the country and independence and all those in connection with the war, the military conflict. So this is why in documents, in diplomas, during classes, it is very, very important, and we follow these rules. But historically, this city was founded by shipbuilders.
Okay.
Shipbuilders from, of course, Russia, and as we know, our city, I mean the inhabitants of our city, some of them know that this city was constructed approximately according to the project of St. Petersburg.
Okay.
So this is why the southern region of Ukraine is has been always considered to be Russian.
Okay.
You see, so we are bilinguals. We equally we have equally mastered those two languages.
I see. Very interesting.
This is like historical tendency and modern situation.
I see.
It's like a mixture. Not really. Not
Okay.
really. Ukrainian has always been the one of the official language of
Okay.
the Ukrainian USSR,
Okay.
right? But we switched. You know, I can say that in 1991 we totally like switched and didn't use it. No, the situation became more serious 5 years ago in 2013, in the end of it. You see, when the people realized that language is one of the means of preserving the country's sovereignty, independence, dignity, self-recognition,
Yes.
etc. This is the main means of it.
Yes, I see.
Yes, actually, our languages, Belarusian, Russian, and Ukrainian, belong to one group, Slavonic. And actually, the differences between them is not very big. Of course, every language has, you know, like some specific peculiarities, but not about endings. All is the same, not about the syntactic structure, only different words. So this is why, and Ukrainian, due again to the Soviet Union, Ukrainians had to understand Russian
I see.
in all times.
Yes.
So this is why, for us, it's not a problem. I know that some Russian people don't understand Ukrainian sometimes, especially the Ukrainian language of Western Ukraine,
I see.
because sometimes I don't understand them.
Yes,
They have
yes.
some special dialects.
I
So
see.
the dialect of the mountains.
I see.
So this is why sometimes it can be different. But for us, for me, for example, as for me, So I had one time 2 years ago to the faculty of history and political law. So they had guests, a delegation came. So they asked our department to help and translate. So when they gave us materials for us to get an idea of what they would be talking about. So when I translated some aspects and so separate sentences, I translated them into some terms into Ukrainian. And I saw that when I came there, I would translate into Ukrainian because I work with it. But I couldn't. I realized that, and so when I translate into Ukrainian. It's easier because I work with it. When I interpret, I translate into Russian. So I was surprised. I didn't know that.
Yes.
The question is, will Russian be present still in our country?
I guess I'm thinking more. Yes, part of the question is in that sense.
Yes, it will exist.
It will exist still.
Yes, because still they say that Ukrainian, right? But I was, I learned. I know Ukrainian. I know Russian. I used to use Ukrainian at work and used to Russian at home. I'm not going to change my habits.
Yes.
So,
exactly.
and when I have kids, for example, they will do the same because at home I will speak with them. I will use Russian, and at school and university they will have to deal with Ukrainian.
Yes,
so
correct.
Situation won't change.
I see.
Actually, I think that Russian, although it will be used colloquially, the quality of written Russian has diminished already because children don't know Russian, but they speak it. And when they start writing, they mix it with Ukrainian. You see?
Okay.
So this is why we have this situation. When I read something in the social nets, so I'm very impressed, because they are illiterate in They can't write Russian.
Very interesting.
So I have been studied in Russian. I know the rules, right? Like commas and orthography. So this written Russian will. Unfortunately, the political situation influences the situation with languages always.
Yes.
So I hope that everything this the status of Russian as the status of the language of enemies or something like this. So it will disappear, and I hope everything's gonna be all right. We can't know this. We do not know this.
I see. It's interesting.
Now, no.
Okay.
Actually, we make up the curriculum as far as we have the status of the national university.
Okay.
So we form it, I mean the departments who work with the specialties, because even the Secretary of Education cannot know everything, right?
Yes.
So our specialty is one of the youngest. We have been working with a specialty translation for 11 years.
Okay.
And of course, for the years of work, we already know what's better, right?
Okay.
So we form it. So we have some instructions, but they are mostly the instructions with numbers or with some general subjects. For example, the history of Ukraine, the Ukrainian language, something like this. As for the professional subjects, we are totally individual. Of course, rector then signs it,
Yes.
right? But we have the right to change as far as the national
Yes.
university. Well, actually, when I read Russian classics, I would say that it's Russian.
I see.
When I read something Ukrainian, I would say that it would be Ukrainian because, but Ukrainian is considered to be one of the most melodic languages in the world after Italian, I guess. So
Yes.
it gets the second place. But Russian is a language. So I have mastered these languages as far as I have already said equally. So I can say for sure Russian is very expressive. If Ukrainian is mild and melodic and it can, it's very beautiful. Then Russian, I do not know. Sometimes it's enough to use one word to express a huge idea. You
I see. Yeah.
So I
interesting.
can say for sure. I like them both. Nevertheless, of course, Ukrainian is the official,
official
one. I'm not
language.
against it.
I
I'm
see.
only for.
Sure.
Actually, sometimes we translate only into Ukrainian. Sometimes we have difficulties to pick the word in Ukrainian because we speak Russian.
I see.
You see? But the situation is like this. We discuss something in English, then we translate it, the text or whatever, into Ukrainian, and if they have some mistakes, I explain it either in English or in Russian.
Or in Russian.
You see?
Very interesting.
So we have, we are not bilinguals, we are polylinguals.
Polylinguals,
already.
definitely.
So those ethnicities, nevertheless, they are both Slavonic. Each language totally fits each ethnicity.
Ethnicity. I
So
see.
this is why I would say that Russian, they have this sound, so it expresses everything, and like in Hollywood movies, right?
Yes.
And Ukrainian is very mild. This is the language of the fields, of the Black Sea, of the Carpathian Mountains, of one of the oldest cities in our country and in Europe, Kiev.
I see.
So you see, I can say they perfectly mirror each culture.
I see. Very
I
interesting.
would say that.
Okay.
Well, this is the result of interference.
Okay.
People who have better mastered Russian sometimes use Ukrainian principles. People, for example, speak Russian, but they hear the Ukrainian language, and they start using some words or some sounds pertain to Ukrainian.
I see.
You see? So maybe even they use it on the syntactical level. So yes, it's actually not a code switching, but interference.
Interference.
Yes.
I see. So it sounds like it is more like what I would call pragmatic failure or pragmatic.
Yes.
You transfer elements from the first language or from one language to the second one and just use them. Okay. After having interviewed my colleague Irina Usashenko, and after having witnessed some of her students' performance in celebration of the International Translation Day, we learn important aspects affecting the uses of Ukrainian, Russian, and English in the field of translation in Ukraine. We wanted to see what was the current trend in this regard and also to know which language took more prominence in the field. First of all, I was delighted to see how university students take active participation in their studies by putting into practice their translation skills via role play, poetry, dancing, and singing performances. Definitely, this was a good approach to have students remember making connections with their field of study. It was interesting to realize nowadays how Ukrainian takes more status as a language to be translated more than Russian with English, German, and other languages. As Irina noted, this is a complex situation that has shifted in Ukraine given the recent political situation after 2013 during Euromaidan and after the Ukrainian independence. Yet we can see the rooted background status that Russian still has in the population in the south of Ukraine. Irina declared that because of the city of Mykolaiv was founded by Russian shipbuilders and was also considered a model taken from St. Petersburg, this became the reason why the Russian language was rooted into the population, even though Ukrainian kept an official status during the Ukrainian USSR. Therefore, historically, as we know, because of Euromaidan, Ukrainian language gained more status as a national and patriotic language. Irina declared, Russian is a strong language and perhaps even more complex syntactically than Ukrainian. Yet Ukrainian is a melodic and mild language, the language of the mountains, of the fields, of the Carpathians, of the Black Sea, and of course where Kiev originated. Remarkably, because of this, Irina warns, Russian language has already been diminished in schools because it is no longer taught formally as Ukrainian and other languages are. She is concerned and has observed many children in schools who mix both Russian and Ukrainian or who insert Ukrainian vocabulary in their writing. Even worse, teenagers are not able to write properly Russian in the social networks. Currently, Russian language is used informally and colloquially, yet it is not taught formally as it should be. It seems to me Russian is becoming a vehicle to understand specific situations in specific contexts. For instance, in the example Irina provided in her university classes, the default language to use and to translate is Ukrainian. So if a term, a sentence, or a text is to be translated into English, then when there is a need to discuss their meaning, the discussion is conducted in either the Russian or English language, but not Ukrainian. Therefore, I suspect now Russian is being used as a comfort language for discussions, clarifications, at least in the university level in Ukraine, more like a metalinguistic and heuristic tool in classrooms. Recently, a colleague of mine stated that parent conferences in a local elementary school started with the teacher conducting the meeting in Ukrainian, as it is the taught and state language. However, parents asked the teacher to discuss important matters in Russian. In terms of using either Russian and Ukrainian and translating codes, Irina indicated there is no major syntactic, ending or vocabulary differences not only between these two languages, but also Belarusian. Because of this, she declares, the students of the translation department will have a great opportunity to make translations between English or German to Russian and Ukrainian in their field of work. Finally, we discussed the notion of Surzhyk, or as many define, the mixture of both Russian and Ukrainian. According to Irina, Surzhyk is not code switching per se, but more an interference. So she gives the example of an individual near proficient in Russian and yet using elements of Ukrainian. For instance, inserting words, syntactical patterns, or even just sounds into the dominant language. In our research, we wanted to know the importance nowadays in Ukraine in terms of languages being taught and used for translation purposes. As the political shifts always dominate this field in education, Ukrainian has become the default language in most of the schools and universities across the country. At the end of the day, as Irina has noted, after 2013 and not even in 1991, people realized Ukrainian language is the language Ukrainians needed to embrace more towards the future. Irina said, Ukrainian language is used now as a tool for preserving sovereignty, independence, dignity, and self-recognition.
Оставайся собой, улыбайся рассветом и уверенным шагом вперед, навстречу весеннему ветру. Жизнь прекрасна, смотри, сколько лучиков светлых вокруг, океаны любви и улыбка, что дарит друг. Пусть солнце лучистое в душе твоей разольется, пусть небо прозрачно чистое синевою к сердцу прикоснется. Ты просто живи и дыши и люби, и каждый, кто дорог, пусть рядом остается. И каждый, кто дорог, пусть рядом остается. Даже если вдруг гром град по сердцу обильно, есть на свете родимый дом, где поймут, там ведь любят так сильно. Рядом пусть будет та, для которой ты смысл и счастье. Нежным взглядом она защитит от беды ненастья. Пусть солнце лучистое в душе твоей разольется, пусть небо прозрачно чистое синевою к сердцу прикоснется. Ты просто живи и дыши и люби, и каждый, кто дорог, пусть рядом остается. И каждый, кто дорог, пусть рядом остается. Пусть солнце лучистое в душе твоей разольется, пусть небо прозрачно чистое синевою к сердцу прикоснется. Ты просто живи и дыши и люби, и каждый, кто дорог, пусть рядом остается. И каждый, кто дорог, пусть рядом остается.